6 a.m. The sound of wood splintering yanked me out of bed. My barn, the last thing my father and I built together, was being ripped apart by strangers with sledgehammers. Dust filled the air as my livestock scattered, panicked. The HOA president stood nearby, arms crossed, a satisfied smirk on her face. They called it a violation removal. I called it an ambush. What she didn't know, what nobody in Willow Creek knew, was that buried 6 feet beneath my land sat a rusty iron valve older than the HOA itself. One twist could erase their entire $5 million paradise. That morning felt like a funeral replaying itself. My father's barn, hand-hewn beams from the 1960s, wasn't just a building. It was a monument to my family's history, a place where laughter used to echo louder than storms. Now it was reduced to rubble in less than half an hour. I shouted, begged them to stop, but the contractors only shrugged. Board orders, one muttered before slamming another beam to the ground. My neighbors peeked from their manicured lawns, pretending not to see, but I caught their glances, some pitying, others smug. The HOA president, Victoria Stone, snapped photos as if she was staging a magazine shoot. She posted them online with a caption, "Lesson learned, rules apply to everyone." The barn had been my sanctuary after losing my wife, my father, and nearly my sanity. But in that moment, anger turned into something sharper. Because beneath the soil where the barn once stood, I remembered an old legend my grandfather whispered about. A hidden system controlling the neighborhood's water. I didn't yet understand its full power. But soon, Victoria and her empire of rules would. My 2 acres didn't look like much compared to the towering McMansions surrounding it. To the HOA, it was an eyesore. A modest farmhouse, a few animals, and the barn they'd just destroyed. But history had marked this land differently. In the 1950s, my grandparents built here, long before the resort lake and the HOA's shiny vision of luxury living. Back then, this property sat at the natural low point of the valley. Every storm drain, every sprinkler runoff, every drop of water from 300 homes funneled through it before reaching the man-made lake. To me, it meant mud on my boots. To developers, it meant millions in property value. That lake was their crown jewel, the reason houses sold for triple their worth. What Victoria didn't know was that my grandfather had worked with county engineers during the lake's construction. He insisted they build a manual valve system as insurance against flooding. He called it the floodgate. Most folks forgot it even existed. But when I dug through my grandfather's papers after the demolition, I found the old sketches. Scribbled notes confirmed what I feared, and secretly hoped. The key to their empire was buried under my land. Victoria Stone wasn't just any HOA president. She was a queen ruling her kingdom with manicured nails and iron rules. Blonde hair perfectly curled, heels sharp enough to stab grass, and a smile that never reached her eyes. She'd moved here 5 years ago with her husband, a developer with dollar signs for pupils. From day one, she treated me like the neighborhood's blemish. Violation notices appeared in my mailbox weekly: unauthorized structure, livestock hazard, unsightly property. Each came with escalating fines, written in a tone that dripped with condescension. I tried to reason with her once, after my wife's passing. I explained the barn was my therapy, a way to keep my hands busy when my heart refused to heal. Her response? Tragedy doesn't exempt you from standards, Mr. Gray. She made it clear, my land was in the way of their expansion plans. The barn wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about leverage. What she didn't realize was that by destroying it, she'd unleashed something she couldn't control. Because her thirst for power had turned me into a man with nothing left to lose. And men like that are dangerous. The night after the demolition, I couldn't sleep. The silence of the property gnawed at me. I wandered into the rubble, flashlight in hand, kicking aside boards until metal glinted beneath the dirt. At first, I thought it was junk, just a rusted wool half buried in the soil. But when I dug deeper, I found a pipe as thick as my arm running straight toward the lake. My hands trembled as I turned the wheel a quarter inch. Minutes later, I heard it. The faint gurgle of rushing water. I ran to the retention pond behind my house. Its surface rippled strangely, the waterline sinking almost imperceptibly. My grandfather's words rang in my memory, "If they ever push you too far, remember, the land remembers us." It wasn't just folklore. It was real. That valve didn't just protect against flooding. It controlled the water supply to the lake that kept every mansion's value afloat. I straightened, heart pounding. For the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. I felt dangerous. Victoria thought destroying my barn ended the fight. She had no idea I had just found the weapon that could end her empire. If Victoria sensed I wasn't broken yet, she doubled down. Within a week, I received 12 violation notices. My work truck, unsightly. My livestock, health hazard. Even my crying, caught on a neighbor's camera, disturbing the peace. Neighbors stopped waving. Parents pulled their kids closer when I walked by. Online, fake reviews painted me as unstable and dangerous. It wasn't enough that they tore down my barn. Now they wanted my reputation, my livelihood, my dignity. I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by violation letters, my father's empty chair across from me. The weight of grief, injustice, and loneliness pressed like a vice. But then, I remembered the gurgle of that valve. The way water bent to its will. The HOA thought they were suffocating me with paperwork and shame. What they didn't realize was that each strike pushed me closer to flipping the switch on their golden lake. I stopped playing defense. For the first time since Sarah died, I felt alive again. Because I wasn't just a grieving man anymore. I was a man with leverage. And leverage changes everything. It all came to a head the morning of their emergency meeting. Victoria had called it to protect the community from environmental hazards. Translation: she wanted me gone for good. But I had other plans. At sunrise, I walked out back with a wrench. My hands shook, not from fear, but anticipation. I turned the valve a full rotation counterclockwise. The sound was immediate, rushing water roaring like thunder through unseen pipes. By noon, the lake had dropped 2 feet. Dock pilings stuck out like broken teeth. The beach looked more like a mud pit than a wedding venue. Word spread like wildfire. Neighbors gathered, whispering in panic. Some glared at me. Others stared at the shrinking lake in shock. At the clubhouse, Victoria tried to spin it as sabotage. She called me unstable, dangerous, a threat to property values. But then I walked in, calm, carrying my grandfather's documents proving my legal rights to maintain the flood control system. The crowd gasped. The sheriff, present for safety, reviewed the paperwork. His verdict? I was within my rights. For the first time, Victoria's mask cracked. She realized she'd picked a fight with the one man who controlled everything. By the time the news stations arrived, the story had already gone viral. Widower HOA tried to crush drain's $5 million lake. Footage of the drained shoreline, neighbors testifying about harassment, and proof of Victoria's corruption painted her as the villain she truly was. Within weeks, she was forced to resign. Lawsuits piled up, her developer husband's company collapsed, and their dream expansion died in the mud. The new board reversed every violation, reimbursed me for damages, and even funded the rebuilding of my barn, this time as a community heritage site. But the real victory wasn't money. It was control. I rebuilt the barn with neighbors who finally saw me not as an eyesore, but as the man who stood against tyranny. Kids now play where livestock once stood. The barn walls carry laughter again. And every morning, I walk past that valve. The rusty wheel sits under a protective cover, a silent reminder that true power doesn't always look like wealth or status. The HOA destroyed my barn. But with one twist of a valve, I destroyed their illusion of control. And I'll never let them forget it.